Welcome to the Chatting Chakras podcast, where we get our inspiration from chakras, yoga, art, and sacred space of friends. Here's your hosts ready to rock the rainbow with you, Christina Alexa, Lani Voivod, and Kate Lemay.
We're here with my dear friends, Christina Alexa and Lani Voivod, for another chakra chat session. And what are we talking about today, my friends?
I believe, Kate, we are talking about transformation.
Transformation. I love it. Who would like to read today?
You want to read, Lani?
I would be honored. One moment, please.
Kate and I can blast the screen with our evolution into third chakra. Double hit.
Transformation. This is an image of the mush when a caterpillar is a chrysalis. Inside, a butterfly is in the process of being created. Cherish all parts in your transformation. They are beautiful, especially the mushy ones. Mantra is, I honor my process. I honor my process.
Well, this is one of my, I always say this is one of my favorites, but this one is one of my favorites. I think that the reason I love it is because when we think that we are only a good person or a good thing when we are not mushy, we invalidate or neutralize part of the greatest part of our development, our growth, our transformation, which I think do normally come in the really mushy parts. I think that idea of the imaginal cells, which I'm sure, Lani, you'll bring in, but this idea that when the caterpillar is changing complete its form, it had everything it needed prior to going into that cocoon, where the chrysalis, where it completely turns into mush and then is becoming this butterfly. And I think the metaphor around the butterfly and the mush for me is that, of course, when I'm in the spots that are mushy, I'm usually not like psyched to be there. I'm usually like, oh no, I'm feeling vulnerable or not my best self, or maybe I'm not meditating, or like I want to blame it on all this outside stuff. But usually when I just go into it and acknowledge it as benefit part of the process as any other part of the process, is when I truly get the gifts that are coming from the transformation. Because instead of raging against the mush, I embrace the mush and I believe it's beautiful. And so I think it also, when people are mushy around me, I just feel like it's a real honor to hold that space, because I do think we all need it. So I think that's what I'd add to that to get us going.
Mm-hmm. There's so much in there.
Yes. I want to ask you, Kate, the artist, I am intrigued by the word mush, like the word. I love that you used it without apology, and it is the right word. Can you just go on a little bit of a mush tangent?
Yeah, I think that it was the word that honored the emotions the best that I think I could come up with, where, I didn't want to label it bad, but mushy, like when we say I feel mushy, that's not strong. That's like literal, like it is almost has no texture or strength or structure. And so I think that the word mush it's also paralleling my emotions, that, I think it was a good word. So those mushy emotions. So if we're having, say you have children or spouse or someone you get to kind of watch a mush moment happen, it truly is one where I'm like acknowledging, oh, look, I'm looking at mush, or I'm feeling mush. And that is what made it, I think, not just about a caterpillar, but a lot more about the emotional spectrum, I think, of transformation.
Yeah, I think
have
it's
to
so
happen.
strong. There's playing the idea of transformation, which is, usually felt and thought of as such a strength move, like the ultimate expansion in the moment. But I think that's where the juxtaposition of mush, of like extraordinary, extreme biological, chemical vulnerability that's required, like a complete surrender, letting go for the transformation. I like it. Thoughts, Christina?
Are you feeling me write things down?
Yes,
Just write this down, get it out of my head. Yeah, I love this one. And in class this morning, we also had yellow, different yellow, but I love this. And first thing that comes to mind is, we're talking about that butterfly, the emergence of the butterfly. And this is our power center, third chakra, Manipura chakra. And it's also a masculine chakra. So the first is a masculine principle chakra, kind of like the doer. The second chakra we talked about in a previous podcast was Svadhisthana, the second chakra, which is feminine receptive. And I think it's important to note that this is masculine principle again. And so because if we approach it that way, and if we think of masculine principle as we all have the balance of masculine and feminine within us, we all have the balance of darkness and light within us, shadow and light, and we're talking about all of those things right here. So when you're talking about the mush, and Kate, you said that when you just opened with that brief piece, and I just said there's so much there. You touched on kind of like your descriptions of each chakra and each card are so distilled, and if you really look at it, there's so much in so few sentences. It's like poetry. What you just said, there's so much in there. And the word transformation, that process of transformation, we could also call the process of transmutation, right? If we can face our mush, face our shadow, digest it by validating it first, and then using the tools available to us to endure that process of going through the mush, then we're transmuting whatever we want to think of as our, the unconscious stuff that comes up to the light of consciousness for healing and liberation, so we can do what we're doing here. The more we do that, the better able we are to hold that space for others. And you touched on all of that, Kate, that place of meeting the mush and then holding space for other people's mush, really, really appropriately, really beautifully. But I always think of this power center, right? Relationship with power doesn't mean it does mean I'm going to rock my power, but it doesn't mean I'm going to pull on power and grab power and all that stuff, right? Relationship to power to me is a great, great state of humility because we can face this process. And then we no longer need to pull from the outside world around us. We no longer need to push. We're no longer acting unconsciously from our inner wound. Instead, we are integrating, holding space for, and yet not absolutely becoming the mush or the wound or whatever it is. We become the process and we get lost in it. I think when we are still avoiding it a little bit, we're terrified. We can face it and be terrified, or we can avoid it and be terrified. And I think facing it and being terrified is so much more validating, so much more powerful. And I think it helps to have support system around us when we do that work. Yeah, so anyway, that's the first thing that comes through for me. I think it would be really neat at some point to talk about, drop a couple tools here and there about how to do that process. But transformation, beautiful part of moving through this, honoring our process, and also recognizing that actually is also transmutation, like the alchemist, which I know you've got that in these cards here, Kate, right? All that, the alchemy and the, it's all in there. So that's my first hit.
Lani Lou.
Nope, she got it. I mean, it's your turn. Your turn.
You know, you know what I loved is when you said mush, Christina, and you laughed. I think that is also what I was going for. You know, this idea that, you know, I mean, God, I could listen to you all day about how you describe this work. But this component of facing it, you have a choice. You can face it or not face it. And in both cases, that's terrifying and painful, potentially, you know, and I wouldn't mind dropping a couple tools in here. I think that, you know, this is certainly a tool. I mean, they all have tools. Every single component of this deck has tools in it. But this particular one, I think when facing the mush, which I love the chuckle, because then potentially we went like, that is what I was also looking for, is that when you're in the middle and you're like, oh, I'm in a mush state, that little bit of levity can help you move forward rather than retreat into I can't. And I see this from so much experience. Like some of the ones that were my patterned ones that just would not transmute, they were like, we want to stay here longer because you must have more lessons here, you know, or whatever the point was. But instead of facing it, it would just be on repeat. You know, I would get super close and then I'd literally be like, I can't, you know, I can't do this. And I think that our doing YTT with you was truly one of the most empowering experiences of my life, because I realized that so deeply inside of me was every single one of these tools. And I mean, I think you also, the nod to having a community around you to assist and not, I'm trying to think of the word, but like, indulge the running away part, right? Like, that's where I really know my friends, like the kind that when I'm in the middle getting ready to like go do that work, instead of being like, oh, you're fine, you don't need to do that. It's like more of an empowering, you got this. Like, you want me to be on the phone with you while you do it, or you want to do it by yourself? You know, you can be here. And I think that so much of my own personal transformation came from the willingness to heal in front of others, which, you know, that I tend to do, you know, even when I'm like very apologetically like, sorry, you know, and I'm learning now, don't say you're sorry, say thank you for holding space for me while I went through that process, because truly it is such an honor to be witness to other people's transformations or transmutation experiences, because it actually gives me the courage and the knowledge that I have this within me, you know? And so that's a lot, but that's what I'd add to that. So thank you for what you said.
And I do think that our degree of what we face in ourselves, the depth of it, is proportional to our capacity as a warrior spirit. So I think that if anybody is contemplating facing something that may feel a little bit more impactful or dramatic or deep or painful, it doesn't matter how strong we are. We might not recognize until we have perspective of doing what you're talking about, Kate, which is coming into some community. Community can be two people, could be you and a buddy. Until we come out of isolation, we don't realize how much we're isolating with our stuff and how impactful that can be. So if we try to white knuckle it alone, you know, can we do that? Yeah, all the work ultimately that we do feels like we're doing it for ourselves alone, right? We do it for ourselves and therefore for everyone, but we have to do the hard work. And yet we are, we're meant to be connected as human beings. We're meant to be connected. And I just drew this really quick. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't. This is my little spiral. Just to say, you know, Kate, you mentioned sometimes those patterns rear their heads over and over and over and over and over. It's my belief and my experience that we're on the spiral where we are we spiral into manifestation, we spiral back to spirit. That aside, if we imagine our growth is not linear, but it's circular and we're on a spiral, and say there's this one thread, this one rod through one part of the spiral that is one lesson in life, one repetitive thought pattern that we have about ourselves that's painful, or one expression of our wound, or one trauma, or one hurt, or whatever it is. And as we go around the spiral, we hit that spot and it's like, ouch, 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 ouch. And maybe at that point on that spiral, we go into distraction, or we go into, I'm not going to do this right now, or I'm going to, or then we might stay at that space in the spiral, loop, 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 and hitting it over and over. I'm going to go into distraction. I'm going to come back and hit it again. I'm going to go into distraction, come back, hit it again. Every time it's painful till we wake up. And then we integrate a part of that. We start to elevate on that spiral, and then we hit it again. And we go, darn, I thought I was done with that. I already felt that through. I thought I was done. Here I go again. I got to face this again. But because we face it and we validate it, we then keep evolving upward on that spiral. And then we hit it again. But this is just my little visual. I think of it as a vertical like spine in our growth that's on the part of our spiral that we hit over and over. But there's an end to it. And it kind of peters out at the top, and it gets easier and easier. And meanwhile, we get stronger and stronger. And I just through my work with myself and with privileged with others, observing everyone's process that I've had the privilege to be with in my lifetime. I do think that is a very common thing that people say. I thought I was done with this. I'm tired of this pattern. I'm tired of this wound. I'm tired of this pain. I want it to be done. But third chakra is all about self-validation. It's our feeling center. And facing our feelings is, I believe, and I have said, and I will continue to say, probably always, it's the hardest thing we'll ever do. The hardest thing we will ever do is with austerity and without distraction or suppression or self-bludgeoning, face what we feel in purity, regardless of what it is, so that we can then start to evolve on that spiral. So just to validate, sometimes we can't validate ourselves, but we can have a witness to our process who can validate us, right?
You unlocked a lot of thoughts. Like just that reminder that yellow chakra anyway is the place, the elemental place of fire. So we are burning, when we talk about alchemy, transformation, transmutation, tapas comes up, which is a principle in yoga where we are
here's a tool drop right here.
Yes, we play games with our austerity, right? And we sit with uncomfortable feelings. Once we realize we're on this spiral pattern, revisiting, we sit with austerity, breathe through, use all the techniques to see if we can separate ourselves and observe the uncomfortable feeling rather than be consumed by it or run away from it or use it as a distraction or as a tool for evil, like whatever the things we can do with our lashing out or our inward annihilation. These are the things that we do with our uncomfortable feelings until we can separate ourselves, feel them, throw them in the fire of I think it is not an accident that transformation, actually it's so yellow, Kate, that transformation's the first one in this chakra chat series and in this book, because it's the end game. But of course, in the power yellow space, it's like, we're just going to start with transformation, and then I'm going to tell you all the other tools. So like in transformation, because you already brought this up, we've got will, we've got that beautiful dance of heart will and physical will playing in that masculine chakra of yellow. And we have spinning into stillness. So that's like another place where we, these are your paintings, but also the prints that, that are avatars for the principles we're talking about here. So like things that are going to come in your transformation is learning how to spin into stillness so you can come in encounter so you can encounter your will, figure out what the hell to do with that thing. Digestion was a word you brought up earlier, Christina, and that is that's a painting and also a principle. I mean, the physical act of chew into liquid and of breaking things down, food, and also ideas, and also, you know, assumptions and beliefs about ourselves that we don't want to use. So like breaking them down to places where they can be transmuted into the body and released into another form of art, of living, of awareness. The power I lives in yellow. So you are dealing with will, digestion, like willful stillness, and all that power. Because at the end of the day, we compact ourselves. I mean, nature gives, it's so funny. We humans are adorable because, like, you know, I have met people, and I have met, some of them have been inside my own head that have been like, change is not possible at this point. I've been through it all. I've tried everything. Change is not possible. But when we connect, or this idea, like Kate, you said, the imaginal cells, these, you know, the chrysalis, the cocoon is a snow globe of our lives. We are one thing. We live our lives, and then one day, the word that came up very strongly is activation. We get activated. So as humans, when we talk about this, there are definitely camps. You know, I can't use this idea with a lot of people in my life because they're like, oh, what, we get a signal from the universe to just suddenly make a change? And I'm like, well, that's what happens in nature. Like, that's literally what happens with the seed from the oak. You know, like, oh, is it time? Bing. Oh my God, I'm so grateful, Kate, that I have you have to act it out while we do this. I mean, it happens in the chrysalis. Like, at some point, the very hungry caterpillar is like, I can't move anymore, and goes into a ball. And just, I had a beautiful evening yoga practice the other night by the fire. You know, I had Christmas lights. I had candle scents. It was wonderful. And then I found myself in a forward fold. I don't know if I was there for 2 minutes or 20 minutes, but the awareness of like just being there felt like the being in the chrysalis, going, my spine has to open up. I found places that realign themselves that I didn't know existed in my body. I'm like, burp, burp, burp. I felt like I don't know. The Terminator, does that happen in the Terminator movie where everything gets fixed again? I don't know. The point is, this transformation thing, it's not a theoretical, or it's not something that you arrive to. It can be, but there's an actual physical nature activated component that happens within us, and we can access that more powerfully and maybe more with more awareness using tools like yoga. Boy, was that enough of a splat? I feel like I'm just gonna let you guys respond to that. I'm not sure if there was a nice story arc in the just wanted to bring in all the yellow, bring in some fire, remind us that like this reflected transformation is not something that's a soft concept. It is biological and chemical, and it happens. So why, of course it happens for us. So when we are stuck or feeling frustrated or any of that stuff, it's kind of finding a way to be patient and respect yourself while you're still unformed. And coming back to that snow globe, before the snow globe shake up, before everything else that you already had just gets invited to cascade differently and rearrange, you know, who you are in a more connected way with mind, body, and spirit.
Can I jump on that, Lani?
Yes, you may.
Again, just so much there before it leaves to ride on that current of all of that yellow and that fire. This is really a bridge, isn't it, to the heart? Because the three chakras, and an old way to think about it would be like we have lower chakras and upper chakras, and therefore classifying it even maybe a little unconsciously in our heads. We have bad chakras and good chakras. We have dark and we have light. That's not what it is. If we have the courage, this is where we cut our teeth, where we're really doing the work and grounding and tribe and becoming receptive and then finding our right relationship to power in the yellow chakra here. The good news, and I always think of it as, I know we do, as a sun, right? Like bright yellow sun. We all have it right here, our power center. It's when we're doing this work of transformation that you're talking about so much, so beautifully. The good news is our power starts to become brighter immediately. It's not like we have to do all of our work in this world to completion in order to then be in our power. That's not how it is. It's like pulling down the veil or cleaning part of the window pane. You may have this filter of patterning, but if we clean one spot, the light comes right through, doesn't it? It lights up the whole room. So gives us some light and we go, oh, wow, let's clean that spot over here. That process is joyous. It's an amazing process. And I just also want to say, we use that if we're depleted in the third chakra and we just clean one tiny bit of the window pane, clean also may sound like there's something bad or dirty that needs to be purged. It's not a purge process. It's a curiosity process, right? We use our will. You were talking about, Lani. We use again, this is the masculine principle of, I've been hanging out in my second chakra and I figure out, I've been pulling a little bit from the heart and hanging out in that receptive chakra and feeling like, how do I want to creatively birth my life? Oh, is that what I'm feeling there? So let's get into the power chakra here. Oh, but maybe I don't feel good enough or strong enough or worthy enough, right? Worthy is a big word here, to then manifest my deepest desires. Well, let's work on that now. And then if we dust off that filter and the light comes through, it comes through powerfully. It comes through powerfully and infinitely. And it's as bright as if the whole thing was cleaned off, right? So we use that power to self-validate and say, oh yeah, I am worthy. This is an inside job. It's an internal process of self-validation. My feelings are here for a reason. Every single one of them is valid. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a projected feeling that I then take ownership of and say, actually, I'm not going to blame or shame others or myself for a moment. I'm going to just feel the pure feeling, which is anger, jealousy, rage, whatever it is, sadness, unworthiness. I'm going to feel it and then start to realize that, I'm honoring my process by just feeling. Let some of this light come through in that validation. Guess what? If we validate ourselves, we stop looking for validation as intensely in the world around us. And not only that, we start to then, like we've talked about this in the other chakras, get a mirror from the world around us of our own brightness. Because when we shine our light a little bit, not in a contrived way, not walking around and saying, I need to shine my light and be false about it. It's, I need to do this really deep mush work. And then my light comes through and we're shining our light. And then people will start to mirror that back and say, wow, you're glowing. I don't know what you're doing, but you're glowing. I can't tell you how many people, all of us, myself, yourselves included, have said, wow, people are telling me that I glow right now, right? And it's when we're doing our deepest work. And it's when, that's hard work. I just want to also comment on this painting. Every time I look at it, Kate, I don't never know how to hold these things up to the thing. I see a face. And I see a face of like, this is hard. This is not.
Oh my God, yeah. I've never
Do you see the
that.
face? I love that. Sorry if you can never now get that out of your head.
It's like a Van Gogh Dolly painting.
pretty pissed. Or she, or that energy.
He's pretty in process, and it's actually, and it also looks male to me. You know, I love it. I think it's great. But our masculine principle, when some of that light shines through, then becomes our greatest champion. We become our own greatest champion, and we say, you know what? Not in a hard, dogmatic way necessarily, but in a soft and strong and deep way. Say, you know what? Yeah, I deserve to manifest my greatest desires and dreams. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know that I'm worthy, and I'm going to pick myself up and keep going and do this. And it becomes very beautiful. I know people who live. We all have one chakra or two or three or whatever, that we live out of a little more strongly than others, that we've developed well in this lifetime or others, whatever you believe. And we've done some work there. And I know people who lead with their third chakra, who go through life so beautifully from that space. And I watch that and say, wow, they really have learned somewhere along the way how to self-advocate, and how to be there for themselves, and how to shine their light, and how to be a leader, and how to help other people recognize their own leadership's roles within themselves. You know, it's an amazing, amazing space, but it does require not just a transformation, but I love that it starts with honoring our process, because if we can get that piece, even the transformation is going to happen no matter what. But the really sweet part of that, the sweet spot and the secret in the smaller writing at the bottom is, I honor my process. That's almost more important than the transformation, because with that we can transform. So that's part of what I love about this painting, Kate.
Yeah, and it's, you know, what's in that sentence of I honor my process, I just want to acknowledge how, like, when I find the mush, honestly, and this is, I'm not saying this just to be like, you know, oh, look, I've been able to figure this out. But like now I am excited. I maybe kick and scream a little bit like, this is so uncomfortable. But it is like ding-a-ling-a-ling, you found something, right? So when there can be times when I'm like, I'll use the phrase like, I feel off, or I'm just not myself, or something's happening. And that's the signal. Like, oh, we might be finding something. And then when the acknowledgement of I'm honoring the process, it's then like I love every time you use the words like sweetness, Christina, because I definitely see it as this, that is the feminine component in this masculine chakra, where we're like, you know, bulldozing through it that's not what this card's about. The card is about the fact that the entire process, from the moment where I'm like, I might be finding something here, you know, all the way to sometimes what looks like, you know, me crying on the bathroom floor, or breathing so hard and feeling something that, you know, and I talk about these feelings as like ideas of like Band-Aids, where you might walk around your entire life not wanting to rip off a Band-Aid because you're like, it's going to hurt when I rip it off. But then in that process, you have literally spent, it could be lifetimes, decades, trying to avoid a 5-minute pain. And, you know, I think I've shared this in many of the yoga groups before that we've been part of, that, you know, I've gotten to the point that because I'm such a process nut, like I love process. I love to like figure it out and figure my own, like be a detective about Kate Lemay process, that I have time to this crap. And there's normally not more than 5 minutes of like the actual feeling that I have to feel, or that I'm being invited to feel. That when I do honor that, especially, you know, I am a person that kind of likes witnesses for some reason also, because I'm like, did you see how hard that, like, did you see me kind of going through that? But even if I'm alone, I'm now realizing like, hey, this is my process and I honor it. And it's different for everybody. We all look super different. But if you look at your process with an investigatory, curious lens, and you're honoring it, not shunning it, you can't help but get where it's trying to all go. Like that is conscious evolution. You're just into the game of this component, which, you know, the chakras are spiritual technology is a word, you know, this idea that inside of us is this gift component box thing that's just in us, this energy that can help with all of these processes. Like, that's what they're here for. They're here to support us. And the more we become a little bit tuned in to like, what does it mean? Or what kind of thing am I talking about? This is so natural. Like, you know, when something's in your gut, like, oh, I got this thing in my gut, which is a good sign that you're talking about yellow chakra. Or I have a lump in my throat. We're talking about blue. You know, my heart has a knot. We're talking about green. And that's, if you can give yourself permission to kind of go in there with your toolkit, which this is like a simple toolkit that you go in with this curious lens and your little notepad and a compass, and you're like, okay, I'm going in. What am I going to find? And then let it unfold. It's like the journey of your life. And that's why I get so fired up about the chakras, because I just think like they themselves are a set of tuning into energy that makes this journey of your conscious evolution on our planet become one that is it's your journey of your life. And it also is the model for others if they would like to also kind of check this stuff out. That, you know, and I think, you know, for me, I love the full expression of the human form on this planet. I just love, like, you know, I think in one of the videos, I'm like, I'm all in. Like, I feel like the universe birthed us all. We're all highly connected, and we can do anything. We can do anything. Like, make this world a better place in a way that there's so much less suffering, or there's so much more validation of all of the things that humans are gifted to be on this planet to do. And yet, if we just are like, you know, I have this linear way of thinking about being a human on the planet. I just think it's not as fun as, you know, this partnering with that which made us, which is in all of us, around the evolution of our species. And I think that the chakras happen to be like, they're super ancient, but they're also maybe secretively like in us. And I think, what is that thing that they say, God hid God in all of us because it's the last place we'd look. But last night, you guys know I like to like watch movies in the middle of sleep. I barely sleep, but I was watching this movie called The Three Magic Words. And The Three Magic Words, it's a good film, you should check it out. But they are, I am God. And I think that that feels kind of
spoiler alert.
I know, right? But if you watch it, it'll lead to that, and then you know it's. But the thing about it all is that, you know, we are made of energy, and that is really all there is, and we're all the same energy. And so when we see that we are God and everyone else is God and everything is God, everything is the energy, you can call it source, universe, whatever you want to call it, that ultimately you treat people better. You see everyone as God, even when things maybe don't appear that way, right? And I think, you know, this is a long tangent, but that's what happens when I talk about energy and I don't talk about movies that I watch in it.
Hey, Christina, I am, you have probably witnessed more personal journeys. You know, you have done that for decades now. I was wondering if you could, without compromising anyone's, you know, private lives or anything, speak a little bit about what are some different ways honoring the process could look like. Or, you know, if we all, I heard you, Kate, say, you know, we do all have our own process, but just in case anyone who's listening doesn't know what we're saying when we say that, or I don't know if I want to, I have the two-part question. What are some different ways we can honor our process? But I think I'm also more curious just to hear some examples of what it may have looked like to you over the years in other people's lives. Because we only know our journey, so we think that's the only way to do something until we find a better way.
Okay.
Sorry, go. Now you
So
answer.
many things as we go. I just have to comment on something first. Lani, you are wearing the most beautiful jewel tones, and it's just, I'm drinking it because Kate's talking about, and we are all talking about it, and we're hitting like different facets of the same diamond here. We're coming at it, we're like coming at it from different directions. That place where, Kate, you're saying that you get really excited, just as a precursor to answer your question here, Lani, where you get really excited when the crap comes up, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I know, because this is a ride down to find my inner gem, right? And three things came through, and I love how succinctly it is. And I'll hopefully make this make sense. One is, how do we do it? One is the bridge of the breath. We must use the breath as a bridge. That is the bridge from external cycling around in the same pattern at the same level over and over and over. We're no longer spiraling up in our evolution. We're just spiraling around in the same circle. And it's kind of like hitting our head on the wall, right? That's when we're not turning and doing the inner job. If we just stop and use the breath, one breath as a bridge, we know this, right? Pivot into the present. So I love how this little word, I think Lani, some of your little word guides were like, hey, let's just knock on Christina for a second. I'm like, these are Lani's. Bridge of the breath, pivot into the present, and transform through tapas. Ooh. Tapas is, Lani, you were talking about that earlier. So we have lots of examples of that, but we can go into examples of that. But why I'm mentioning, stop, breathe, stop looking outside of ourselves so much, face the feeling. So we're pivoting into the present moment. And the only feeling we need to pay attention to is the one that's happening in the present moment. Not the past, not the future, not external splashing. It's breathe, present, and then feel with austerity, meaning don't put anything on it. Don't add, don't feed, the dialogue, the inner dialogue comes up, but don't feed that inner dialogue. Try to breathe, try to quiet the mind a little bit, even though it might go crazy while we're trying to feel. Witness, like really observe, play with that. Because then we're riding that thrilling laundry chute down to the bottom of wherever that feeling comes from. And that's where we find the gem. And when we find those gems, like the jewel tones on your shirt, Lani, and that you just glow, you embody that all the time. Like that's why you have to have those colors behind you. You just embody that. I was just reflecting when you were talking, Lani, on how safe people feel with you. And if you haven't gotten that mirror lately, I want to give you that mirror as a friend and as someone who feels very safe with you. We can't heal unless we can relax. We can't relax unless we feel safe. And we can't find our power unless we can face what needs to be healed. So finding someone in your world that you feel safe with means that we have found someone who understands that process of discovering their own authenticity and truth by facing those feelings, riding that laundry chute down to origin, and picking up the gems of our own power that live within us. And then we vibrate those gems in our own unique way, those jewels of color and tone and power. And your unique way to vibrate that, Lani, is with depth and levity and making people feel very safe in that aura. And so I want to acknowledge that because you're reflecting that right now, and everything you're saying is reflecting that. As far as, and we all do it in our own way. That's your way, and that just came through to say right now. So everybody's way is going to be different. My way is different. Kate's way is different. We're all different. And Kate, I relate to what you were saying, which is, I get really excited when the mush comes up and I'm going to do this work, and I'm all about process. Process is great. The work's not done until everybody cries, right? In terms of what does that look like, I'll see if I hear a story or if you have one, Lani, that's coming to mind. you know,
Well,
in particular, go for it. Because
so I would say, yeah, so I have some types of like, just like archetypes of people I've seen, different versions of co-creating with the energy of transformation, or, you know, working with the universe. I see some people kind of get activated into climbing 4,000 footers, like a real, like going from like a couch potato situation to like, they can't get enough nature or, you know, like big, bold goals. And it's pretty fast. I mean, some people, of course, enjoy that, you know, the hiking their whole lives, but I've been noticing more and more, especially during this time in our, you know, in 2020, like that it's like everyone's settled long enough, was separated from normal, to really go inside. And what I'm seeing is more and more people deciding to aggressively pursue certain types of running, you know, marathon training, or active, you know, very methodical hiking, you know, to get the sweat, the juice, the inflection of, you know, bombarded in nature, you know, that seems to be some people's process. It's a direct activation, something you might see in your life where you go, I got activated. Like, I had a time in my life where I never held a ukulele, and then I ordered one for $40, and then it just, I mean, I felt like a move. It started there, and I pretty much play every single day. Like, but it just came out of nowhere, where something got up leveled. And I always,
Yes.
in my own personal experience, I felt like I got some kind of permission switch or on switch, and now you can use this tool. I mean, I've seen this in like the movie The Clash of the Titans, the old school one with Harry Hamlin. Like, things just literally show up in someone's path, like a big sword or something that you're just supposed to suddenly use. And so I feel like tools for transformation, if you're tuned in and you like to play the game of the universe, sometimes they literally arrive out of nowhere, and you just have a affinity for them that you didn't have like 5 seconds before you
Yes.
saw it.
Yeah. It's a really cool thing about that is you know, if we get so set in our thoughts and our ways, perhaps, and we might think that this is all there is. And so I might slowly evolve or, you know, whatever. But then the joke on us is that those things happen. And it only does take a second. We might have a thought form in our head for our entire lives, and then at 50 years old or 60 or 70 years old or 25 or 30, whatever it is, we might all of a sudden realize, wait a minute, I've been thinking this thought form, and I don't have to think this thought form anymore. And suddenly something breaks through. And it may not happen in that exact moment. It may happen 2 days later or a month later, all of a sudden have to pick up the ukulele, right? I know a woman, no names, and I'll stay very general, who was feeling very depressed in her life, and then started using some of these tools. And she would describe it as she was very dark. She felt very dark. I never experienced her as dark, but her inner experience was one of darkness and depression, a little bit hopeless, a little bit lost. And that's her self-description. And then she started using these tools, and then she started doing some Reiki. You know, she got involved in that, and she got into what, Kate, you are calling spiritual technology, from the inside out. And all of a sudden, her spiritual awakening happened in a real and irreversible way. And her epiphany was not all of a sudden to start hiking mountains or play the ukulele or, you know, get more deeply into yoga on the mat or anything. Her grand transformational epiphany was to step back and say, holy crap, this path that I've been on that I thought was all wrong is the perfect and right path for me. And not only that, I am so blessed and graced to be exactly where I am. This is my purpose. She discovered that she was exactly on the path of her purpose, and everything opened up for her, and she just dove. And she is the light. She brings the light to her work, and she happens to be in healthcare, which don't we want bright lights in healthcare right now?
Yes.
And I just love watching that, you know, so sometimes it looks like an obvious external shift, and sometimes it is the inner light goes on and we realize that we're exactly where we need to be. I mean, we always are, right? But that's one example of a process that I found particularly profound, right? But
Yes.
we can also unlock these amazing gifts and get creative and have a lot of fun. And that's when second chakra is pulling right up into third and going, okay, now all these latent hidden seeds, right? Oh, guess what? All of a sudden I can play the piano or play it better. All of a sudden I can play the ukulele. All of a sudden I can write. All of a sudden I'm doing art. All of a sudden I can establish discipline when I thought I was never disciplined before. I always thought that I wasn't a runner, but oh, guess what? I'm a runner. You know, I always thought I was introverted and non-social. Oh, guess what? I love talking to people. You know, all kinds of things happen. All kinds of things happen. Oh, I'm not ever going to travel. I'm going to be here forever. Nope. I got to get up and move.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I love that. And I just, I had two authors come to mind as you know, we don't all get the neon signs, but I will say that that is also present in life. Byron Katie, who is an author and spiritual leader, she talks about like a really long, deep, like non-showering depression, you know, couldn't move out of her room, like really bad. And then she just had the full surrender, and she'll talk, it's been decades since that event, and it happened in her 40s. She goes, I never looked back. It did something switched. She understood her connection to God. I can't remember, like something fundamental switched from deep within. It's like she followed it all the way down. So transformation doesn't have to be dark and ugly, but sometimes it is. So if this finds you in a place where, you know, you feel in the depth of maybe hopelessness or curiosity about whether there's an end sight, like, you know, you are safe, keep going, because she switched and now is a beacon of light in this community in ways, you know, she's at the top of the game. The other one, Ianla Van Sant, she has a book called One Day My Soul Just Opened Up, and it's a similar situation. So I will maybe just selfishly speak to women in particular. You know, our bodies go into these rhythmic cycles anyway. So like activation happens, things happen where, you know, our eggs open for business and then they start closing for business. And so like other energy cycles are within us, readying ourselves for different phases of our lives. You know, the maiden, mother, crone.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
So if you are, you know, wherever you are in your age cycle, like be aware that nature itself and the cycles of nature reflect, and you are part of that. We are part of that. And so the activation of transformation is real and built in within us. And we are given, if we're tuned in, we are given help to make quantum jumps into our different abilities and awarenesses.
No, quantum leap is another card, isn't it? Kate, can I ask you a question based on everything Lani's saying?
Yes.
Or just make a comment about, you know, I know that it's quite a process, and you probably can't distill it easily into just a few sentences, but if you could, your process of saying yes to these paintings that came through before you even knew what they were, and allowing them to work on you so that you went through the ongoing, probably still ongoing transformation process where you had to, I would imagine, probably hit some dark night of the soul stuff, right? Like a real spiritual warrior. I always say that's a good sign, you know, if we hit the dark night of the soul, because it's no joke, but like Lani's saying, but it's real, but it's initiation. That process of transformation that you have gone through and probably continue to go through as a result of this work, by saying yes and sort of getting used to bring this through. Therefore, you have to experience it in short and long form in order to birth this. To me, that's the process of everything we've talked about and everything we are going to continue to talk about throughout all of the chakras. I mean, what would you say to me or to anyone about enduring transformation is what I'm hearing. Saying yes to transformation and enduring transformation and the results of or the rewards of transformation.
Yeah, I mean, to be not over dramatic about it, Christina, every single one of those paintings, so there's 49 in this series, was this. So they were all born from transmutation, transformation, which all had components of dark nights of the soul and all had components of work that, even if it didn't come, you know, these were, I'd read, I'd meditate, I'd get symbolism in my brain. Then they came out like a shot. I didn't know what they were. They came out super fast. Then I go back through the process to try to write about it, which was like kicking and screaming. I didn't want to do the work. So in every single one, it was like, I was invited to, you know, it's definitely the hero's journey, like a gazillion times. Like I was invited to heed the call. And then I was like, no frickin' way, I'm not doing this. It's too hard. Then I would find tools and helpers and pathway showers that would just get me to the hump that I could get over something. And so I had many rounds of these with these cards, because first they were born as pictures that I couldn't even articulate words with. You know, they came from my vision. Then through an invitation, you know, which I know you guys have heard the story 20 times, but with Anna Dea Judith, who was the person I studied the most to make these paintings, I happened to run into her on the day in my dreams that, you know, like this thing is so from the mystic. Like I didn't make this, it just came through me. But the process of me saying yes to each one of those iterations, and, you know, Lani's really witnessed, I think today, the way you talked about her, I mean, not to be all Lani today, but Lani has also, you know, held these spaces for me over the course of a decade, where the process in itself then became the language. And that's why it's so refined and distilled, because it didn't just come like, oh, this is what we're making. You've read this stuff and now you've distilled it into ideas. No, it had to like go in my body and then like come out in this way of, you know, for transformation's mantra or power words to be, I honor the process, is because that's ultimately where, you know, and I could, you know, my greatest joy is when I can hear the universe. I know it's not me, you know, I know when I'm hearing it, and I live for it. I mean, I think many artists, they live for it. But actually, we just saw the movie Soul, and if you haven't seen the movie Soul, there's a component where they show all these people in flow. So like, you know, and many of them are doing the arts. So like, that's not an accident. I think the arts are a gateway or a bridge to the divine. You can hear things. And as an artist, you just want to jump on that ride. Like, it's my favorite thing of life. And when I'm riding in with partnership with the universe and we're together and I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. We're making the stuff, you know, and I almost have to like chill out. I have to be like, chill out. It might run away, you know, because when you get that hit, you live for it. But in the movie Soul, they depicted it so perfectly that when you're hit of the addiction to being in flow with the universe becomes the thing you chase to the point that you detach from life, you can then have additional dark nights of the soul. And one of the phrases I use when this was made is I say that artists, I got this somewhere, I can't remember where I heard this quote, but artists are willing to go to places that you literally actually don't think you're going to come back.
Right.
But you do come back with stories to tell the world. And so this whole journey was almost like the rally cry for artists to say, you can do it. You can do it. This will not be for the faint of heart, but the rewards at the end are tools of evolution in our planet. That's why paintings or music or dance or whatever our art form is, healing, is so transformative for others, is because we as journeyers in this process are essentially warriors into the dark, where you find light and you come back with it to share, and you actually don't even know what it is. Like that, it's so beyond you. But as an artist, it's like ukuleleing. It's what I live for, you know. And this journey of saying yes to every iteration of this project, from like the dream that I did a meditation, and I had the dream that this thing was going to be born, and I could see it, but I had no clue where to start. I was broke. I had nothing. Like the reality of all the real tangible things that were in my way as boulders are now the stories that each one of these, I'm like, wait till you hear this story. Oh my gosh, you can do, you know. And I think, you know, I'm going to say something right now that, you know, may be very controversial, and I don't want to say that it's the right way, but I would say I did all of this unmedicated. So I might have been self-medicating, you know, using legal means, but I was never put on prescriptive drugs. And I think that there's a part of me that, you know, I am very proud of that, because I think it would have been really easy for someone to say, oh, look at that depression, or, oh, look at that anxiety. It must be medicated, because no one should have to feel this way. But at the end of the day, my willingness to feel the sensations that are often labeled as anxiety or depression is what gave me the jewels. And they are here in a form now that I can walk around, and it's like my own personal lexicon of tools. And look, I now have my friends playing with me, and it's expanding so much further. Like, this thing isn't mine. It's an expansion of the universe expressing itself. And the more people play with it, you know, people listening to this right now, people that are in the membership club, people that buy this kit, that they start to engage with their own version. They will put their own stuff into this. And that's what makes it truly evolutionarily based, conscious evolution based art, because it's so much bigger than me. And I do think that that is what, you know, every single artist that has cracked through a cultural level in our world has figured out how to do. They've just figured out how to crack through what's the status quo, or what's the things no one's talking about, and how do we move it forward in a healthy, productive way. So I appreciate the question. Thank you for asking it, you know, and I hope that as people engage with this work, what it does is it gives them permission to fully engage with their own self.
Mm. That's good.
Woohoo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just transformation, baby.
That's it.
Well, it's a big one. It's a doozy. They're not all this long. This was a pretty big one.
Yeah.
The arts are a gateway to the divine. You hear things. Kate Lemay. When you get that get, you live for it. So many good things. So beautiful. I do believe that my alarm is still going off on snooze every 9 minutes. I haven't turned it off yet. What's that about?
Huh.
I so appreciate what you're saying. I'm drinking it in like sunlight, because I do believe that identification with or that living artistry, you know, is a gateway to the divine. Like you're saying, there's so much to be found there. That what a frontier, you know, what a beautiful inner landscape to connect with your God, my God, the God of our choosing. So beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's just our willingness to say yes when you hear it, and the nudge, you know, and pick up the ukulele. Like, follow the itty bitty kitty committee. Like, it's, this stuff is your life, and you get to craft it. And I think the more we are willing to just be like, I have preference, I prefer, like we talked about in our last one, as we individuate, you know, and then imagine if it's only us that holds us back from that evolution. Like, what a gig. It's just, you know, do the work. So
yeah, don't be afraid to crawl into the cocoon when it's time, even if you don't understand it.
and you don't have to label it, right? You get in there and you're like, okay, I'm in the mush, and like,
yeah.
The one thing I feel is this.
Yeah, let yourself get mushy so the mush can dissolve and reorganize.
Amen.
With greater awareness. Thank you so much, ladies. Love you.
Love you too.
Love you.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at The Chatting Chakra Show and at www.katelemay.com. Check back weekly for new episodes, where we are always celebrating enjoying the journey.